Traders, how are you? Marcello, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader. Today, we're doing the recap of another coronavirus crisis week. Overall, this is probably going to get worse instead of better. There's a lot of news reports now talking about not necessarily martial law, but crime on the streets, people not being able to cross state borders. Also, some states giving their police authority to pull over out-of-state drivers. So this is definitely going to last a little bit longer, a lot longer than most of us want it to. So hopefully you guys are bundled up. Hopefully you're safe. Overall, this week on Monday, the U.S. stocks did end higher. Investors calculated the investment of the U.S. government, I should say, taking out debt, not investment, but $2.2 trillion rescue package, a lot of which is going to help small business keep the employees, even though there is some news reports out there that a lot of these big banks aren't lending that money to everybody. On Tuesday, the markets ended lower, with Trump warning as much as 240,000 Americans could die because of the coronavirus. On Wednesday, the U.S. stocks also ended lower. A lot of investors were waiting the huge unemployment claims that are now starting to stack up. Thursday, the markets ended higher in the U.S. Seems after Trump's tweet that we may have a deal or the beginning of one between Russia and China with the oil trade, or the oil price war, I should say, as Trump was stating that they're most likely going to be able to have a deal. And then Friday, the U.S. stocks are lower as the U.S. economy shedded about 701,000 jobs in March, with the government ordering the closure of business and factories. U.S. indices so far for the week, the Dow is down 2.77%. It's down over 26% for the year. S&P 500 is down 2.12% for the week, down nearly 23% for the year. And then the NASDAQ is down 1.75% for the week, and overall down 17.83% for the year. In international market news, the Euro markets are mostly lower, with the CAC in Paris down 4.73%. The biggest winner there in Europe was Russia. I know Russia spans all the way to Asia, but culturally the majority live there on the west near Europe, so it's more European culture and European market. They were the biggest winner at 7.12%. In Latin American markets, most of them were mixed. The biggest winner was the Santiago Index in Chile at a positive 13.81%, and the biggest loser was the Bovespa in Brazil at 5.59% negative. Africa and Middle Eastern markets are mixed. Egypt was the biggest loser at 4.83%, and Saudi Arabia was the biggest winner at 6.68%. In the Far East, markets mixed as well. The Nikkei in Japan was the biggest loser at 8.80%. Philippines market was the biggest winner at 1.52%. In Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency news, the price of Bitcoin fell by over 12% in Q1 2020. It outperformed the negative S&P 500 with the numbers that I just gave you. S&P 500 was about 23 negative percent. The Dow was about 26% drop, and NASDAQ was roughly about 15 so far in the first quarter. Meanwhile, gold, which is a classic safe haven asset in times of uncertainty, added just 4% in the first 3 months of the year. For the week, Bitcoin was a positive 0.78%, 6,729.14 cents. And in really big news in cryptos, Bitcoin still hasn't gotten to 50,000 this week for all the analysts out there that were talking about it. In financial and banking news, the latest projections from the St. Louis Fed. For those of you guys that don't know, the central bank has offices around the country. The St. Louis Fed is one of them. Coronavirus, the economy could freeze and could cost about 47 million jobs and sent the unemployment rate past 32%. It reflects the high nature of at-risk jobs that ultimately could be lost, as a record 3.3 million Americans filed initial jobless claims at the week ending the 21st of March. Economists did expect 2.65 million or more to join them this week. Trump said on Saturday that he would ask Congress to make more or to find more money to do the little small business loans to add on to the $300+ billion that they've already assigned to that. It's about $349 billion total. So if that runs out, Trump says that he is going to go back to Congress to be able to add more. Meanwhile, business owners are struggling to get access to the money already allocated, as many banks seem somewhat unprepared for the task at hand. Some analysts are reporting the Fed resources were barely able to prevent the complete financial collapse in 2008. Now that we have a much bigger economic collapse, there's a lot of people that are stating that there's going to be more money that's going to be required and much more access to capital, and the logic quickly leads to the creation of one currency for the entire planet, which is what they wanted all along, isn't it? And the U.S. Treasury yields are significantly lower this week, some of the lowest levels on records due to the coronavirus fears. In commodities, oil sank to an 18-year low on Monday due to the coronavirus, also the price war between Russia and Saudi Arabia. Futures in London plunged by 9% to the lowest level since March of 2002, and New York crude dipped below $20 a barrel after settling just above that level. On Monday, Trump said that he's going to speak with Putin, that he spoke with Putin to discuss the importance of stable energy markets. Oversupply is doing a lot of damage, obviously, with most countries around the world mandating, the quarantines, which have shut down economies overall. That has definitely affected the demand side, where the oversupply now, because the demand has collapsed, is further undoing the oil market structure. There may be more trouble as the world quickly runs out of storage capacity, and there's been a collapse to shut down in the refineries from South Africa all the way to Canada as well, which is going to lead to even more excess barrels in the market. Saudi Arabia last Wednesday on the 1st of April pumped out 12 million barrels of oil, which is the first time that it did that much in its history. And on Thursday, Trump tweeted that he had a great talk with his friend, the Crown Prince MBS. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, but he is known as MBS. That they're going to reach an agreement to be able to cut as much as 10 million barrels of oil. And the OPEC Plus meeting is going to be delayed until Thursday, April 9th. There were some misunderstandings, let's call it, between Saudi Arabia and Russia again. So the meeting that they had, the emergency meeting they had scheduled for Monday, is going to actually be moved to Thursday. Other than that, Saudi Arabia and Russia are saying that they want other oil nations to join the output and cuts, including the United States, which Trump wasn't too happy about. They're saying that there needs to be about 15 million barrels a day of oil cut needed. U.S. crude for the week was up 30.53%, although it is down 52.62% for the year. And international Brent went up 37.42% to about $34.11. It's down almost 48% for the year. The Russian central bank is announcing on April 1st that it's going to suspend its domestic gold purchases. The Russian central bank has been increasing its oil reserves for every month for the last 3 years. The World Gold Council is saying that the Russian bank bought 158.1 tons in 2019, and the central bank bought just 8.1 tons of gold, imagine, alone in January. Gold bullion so far is challenging U.S. Treasuries as the best performing major asset this year. The metal has proven to be a safe haven status and went up 6% on a rally. It's almost as gold has gone up. Remember, there's been about $16 trillion wiped out from global stock markets as mainstream analysts and investors are moving in the direction of gold. I don't know if you guys remember, for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been talking about gold and silver. Now you can't even find the physical metal for the most part due to the fact that there's a huge spike in demand, and also due to the coronavirus shutdown, because a lot of countries are in quarantine. They're not making it anymore either. So the time to buy it is not when things are bad, it's before things get bad. That's why I talked about it so much in the past. Other than that, precious metals are lower for the week. Gold went down 0.38% to 1,622. Silver is up 0.38% to $14.48. In political news, South Korea is going to allow coronavirus patients to vote by mail or with absentee ballots for the parliamentary elections this month. On Thursday, the European Commission told Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban on Thursday that the emergency powers that he's assumed by securing an open-ended right to rule by executive decree must be subject to the proper parliamentary and media scrutiny. And they're saying that it risks upending democracy. It also helps that, the majority of Europe is on the left side, whereas Orban is on the right side, and I'm sure they don't like that. In a surge of coronavirus infections and deaths in Stockholm, there's finally questions being raised about the government of Sweden's decisions to fight the outbreak. They didn't resort to any massive lockdowns and have left much of the rest of Europe in an economic standstill. So they didn't stop their economy. They left the borders open, and now they're starting to get a lot of critiques. That's the word I was looking for in regards to that decision. In economic news, the U.S. Labor Department stating that the U.S. lost 701,000 jobs in March as the coronavirus pandemic devastates the American economy. I should say self-inflicted, since everything is shutting down, by the way. And that ended more of a decade of uninterrupted employment growth. Unemployment rose to 4.4% from 3.5% in January. It's the largest one-month jump since January 1975. And another record week for unemployment claims as the U.S. reached 6.64 million, about double the estimate for the week, which was supposed to be at 3.5 million. Bank of America researchers are saying that the coming recession is going to be deeper and more prolonged than what we were led to believe just 14 days ago when they last updated their forecast. Not just in the U.S., but globally, even though at the moment there aren't any parallels for the pandemic-fueled slowdown as the U.S. economy is currently contending with. In corporate news, Luckin Coffee in China, which is a China-based coffee firm and coffee house chain, founded in Beijing in 2017. As of late 2019, it operated just over 3,500 locations globally. On Thursday, after an internal investigation, the COO, the Chief Operating Officer, was found fabricating sales up to $310 million. Their shares are down 74.5% to just $6.68. Apple is postponing reopening its stores and has told its employee retail stores in the U.S. are going to remain closed for now. So they're starting to institute work from home procedures, which are likely going to stay until May. And Facebook is planned to keep all of their employees and not do any layoffs during the coronavirus shutdown and economic turbulence. They're also stating that they're going to add 10,000 new employees in the product and engineering teams this year. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway indicated on Friday that it sold about 18% of its Delta airline stake, 4% of its Southwest Airlines stake this week, as the coronavirus pandemic is driving the airline industry into perhaps its biggest crisis ever. Delta actually reported this week as well that the money that the government has set aside for them isn't going to be enough, as they're burning through $60 million a day during this situation. Cathay Pacific is carrying normally 100,000 people a day, and at one point this week they just flew about 582 customers a day, as the Hong Kong's flagship airline is collapsing due to the demand decrease due to the pandemic. In trading news, truckers hauling food face delays across the globe, and the latest disruption to supply chains, the wait times in Europe because of restrictions imposed to the control of the spread. In South America, a lot of local laws have at times conflicted with countrywide ordinances, leaving a lot of supplies stocking up in some parts. And in parts of Africa, the shuttering of public transportation means a lot of drivers aren't even able to get to work due to huge spikes in demand. have caused lags for loading at some U.S. warehouses as well. In technology, U.S. government is finally advising people to put on masks as research is showing that the coronavirus could be spread just by breathing. It's an update that came as America saw another huge rise in its death toll, almost 1,500 people in a day. And new infections continued unabated as well. Verizon in the U.S. is experiencing enormous growth on its network, 800 million calls a day with 9 billion messages as the world is home adjusting to the pandemic measures. At sometimes it's seen 100% growth in its gaming network and up to 50% up in its VPN network, which is people working from home. Major U.S. airlines also applied for payroll grants from the U.S. Treasury meant to keep workers employed during the recession, although some already warning funds won't be enough. As I mentioned to you guys before, that Delta's burning through $60 million a day, and companies often are resisting slashing payouts to its shareholders, but triggering a deep recession and imperiling millions of jobs. It's left a lot of firms with little choice, as Goldman Sachs is reporting that S&P dividends are going to decline by about 25% this year. Citigroup is reporting that the dividends in Europe, which are generally more generous than the U.S., are going to be cut by 50%, 50. This is a problem because a lot of pensions are actually invested into a lot of these dividend companies, and they rely on the dividend stocks to be able to pay out their retirees. So if that gets slashed, it might be a problem throughout the globe as well. The corporate dividend cuts are just a sign of how the coronavirus is hitting the world, with after delivering $1.4 trillion in dividends last year alone. And an international event since COVID-19 emerged late last year, over 1.1 million people have fallen ill. Almost 60,000 people have since died. Europe does account for the largest portion of the dead, with Italy and Spain bearing the highest toll. Remember, it does affect people that have compromised immune system, like those people who smoke in Spain, and there's also a lot older people in those countries as well, even though a lot of analysts are saying that the numbers coming out of Chinese government are not accurate. The Prime Minister Sanchez in Spain is saying that it is going to ease economic restrictions after Spain stated a state of emergency. After the Easter holidays, they might ease those restrictions, even though the overall lockdown now is going to be extended through April 25th now. And in unusual facts, as much of the world moves to swiftly lock down crucial medical supplies used to treat the coronavirus, the U.S. failed to take action maintaining business as normal and allowing large shipment of U.S.-made respirators and ventilators to be sold to foreign buyers.